Knitting Eillets Podcast. This is a first in between the podcast episodes roundup, maybe you could say. It's my knitting plans and inspirations and what I want to knit for autumn, fall this year. So yeah, it's a very ambitious list. I'm not sure if I can manage to do everything in fall. 1-2 things I might slip into winter next year. So this is just what I'm thinking to collect patterns I think are very nice to knit now, start knitting when the temperatures get cooler and crisper. Here we had a huge thunderstorm on Friday, Saturday, so it now cooled down from 36 to like 21 degrees, so it's a huge temperature drop. I am able to wear my romantic summer tee I knit. I talked all about this in my episodes 1 and 2. Yes, 1 and 2. So if you want to know more about this one, go back and watch episodes 1 and 2. It's a self-drafted one, so that's why I'm not writing a pattern name on the top here. I am sitting on the very, let me see, right side of the screen from my view, maybe left for yours, I'm not sure. Left and right, not my strength. So because I managed to find out how to put in pictures here, so I'm very excited to do that. Let's just get started. If you see me look around weirdly on the screen, it's because I am reading on the Ravelry page at the same time as I'm filming on my laptop. I try not to move the laptop, which happened before. So it's the first time, it's not so easy. The first pattern I want to continue knitting is the Yvonne MT shawl by Natasja Hornby, and I will now put in a picture and a name of the pattern so you can always see that, and I will link everything down in the description box. Don't think I can do links at a time. I think I need to have something done on YouTube, maybe a certain amount of time I have to be here to be able to put in links. So, but I will write it down so you can read it if you missed 1 or 2. So it's a mosaic knitting shawl. It's knitted from one tip to the other, so it kind of, you go sideways, and I already started it last February, I think, January, February, and yeah, I really love the pattern. Let me just get it back again with the shawl. I somehow forgot to take it. My fringe is doing whatever it wants today. This is the Yvonne MT shawl, and it's a mess, sorry. So I'm just at the beginning. I am here in the middle, and as you see, you knit it sideways. As you can see, it's knitted sideways. It's a lovely pattern. I love the mosaic pattern it has. The wool I'm using is from Hobby. It's Go Handmade. Yes, there you can see it. Go Handmade Vintage in this kind of very, very dark brown. They only have numbers, so they don't have color names. And this light yellowy, it almost fits the background there. By the way, this is because I have a terrarium with a snake in it, and I need to block out the light up here, so it was kind of backlit. So that's why I have to put up a drape when I'm filming. So this wool is nice. It's nicely, not too tightly spun. It's very loosely spun. The content, I tell you the content first. It's 70% wool and 30% bamboo. For me, this is quite an itchy wool. It's not a problem in that shawl because I will wear it over other shawls and maybe my coat in autumn winter. But for knitting, I had to make a little summer break because the yarn is not, for me, that nice to touch in summer when it's hot. It's still, with the 21 degrees, I need to wait till it gets a bit cooler to be able to knit with that. But I will definitely go back to this shawl and knit it. It's a lovely pattern. I'm looking forward to having this shawl. The second pattern I'm going to knit is the Tyto mitts by Nina Pommerenke. I knit those, as you might be able to see on my Ravelry project page. Oh, this is a tongue twister. I knit those already twice, but both times they got so much admiration, I kind of gifted them to someone. The first ones I knitted in alpaca wool, which I wasn't able to wear because it was itchy on the back of my hand. So I gifted those to my sister. She loves them, so perfect. They also fit their hands beautifully. The second ones I knit on a cotton merino wool from Hobby, which was lovely. I loved them. I took them with me to Scotland, where I met my partner's sister, and she is her profession is to watch birds there, wild birds, so she's heavily into birds, and she was kind of freaking out when she saw my mitts, and yeah, as we don't see each other that often, and they were a tiny bit big here at my wrist because I have tiny wrists. They fit her perfectly, and I just said, keep them. I'll knit myself some other ones. So these are on my list because I really love them. They don't tend to stay long in my possession, but I'm hoping that the third ones are going to stay in my possession. I think I have enough of the cotton merino wool left, which I used for the last ones. So I might just do the same ones because I really like the color combination. They were like dark green, white, and beige brown for the owl. So I really love that dark green color. And I think I have enough to do them again. I want to take part on the Herbgarden knitwear Cal 23 by the North Knit Corner. And from the North Knit Corner, thank you very much. She mentioned my podcast in one of her episodes, and I think some of you viewers came from her to my podcast, so thank you, Anne, very much. I'm sorry it took that long for me to put it in my podcast. I wrote it underneath the last episode. I was on holiday. I didn't see your podcast until I was back, and it was already 2 weeks later. And when I filmed the podcast, the third episode, I had it on my notes to thank you, Anne, but I just forgot. So thank you now for mentioning me in your podcast, and I intend to take part in your Herbgarden knitwear Cal 23, and I want to make the Linna headband, which is a very lovely cable pattern. So I'm looking forward to try this, and I want to use the Lang Cash Soft yarn, maybe in this color, maybe in another one. I'm not sure yet. I have some colors because I knitted jumpers, 2 jumpers in this wool, and it isn't produced anymore. I kind of took more than I needed to be sure I had enough yarn. You know, I hate playing yarn chicken. So I have a lot of balls left, and I intend to do hats and headbands with them because I have already 1 hat and 1 headband, and I love to wear them. This wool is just so soft and lovely and nice to knit with. It's one of my favorite wools, and I'm really, really sad that they don't produce this anymore. Obviously, it's it's very sad. Always, if you find a yarn that you love, they stop producing it, I guess. It's 50% cashmere and 50% wool, but it's from recycled cashmere fibers. It's also a very environmental friendly yarn, I guess, because the cashmere is being reused. And I think because it's reused fibers, it's even softer than new ones. So I just love this yarn. And I want to knit the Linna headband with one of those balls. I'm not sure if it's that color. It's a bit, not sure if I hold it up against my head. It's a bit of a color, I think. Doesn't say much, very neutral. I might rather do some mittens or mitts with this one. I have purple, black, I have green, dark green left, and a nice maroon, brown. So I will find the color definitely. The next project is also a pair of mitts, for which I have the wool and I kind of need to find a pattern. I have found this long yarned Grace wool, which is just, it's a fluff of heaven on earth. It's 60% silk and 40% cashmere. So it is really, it is just, oh, maybe you can see, look at that fluff. It is just, it is so squishy and soft and shiny. It is just, oh, it is a dream. I think it's too few meters to do a hat, so I want to do mitts with this one, and I think it would be lovely to have those soft mitts on my hands. I have two patterns in mind. I'm not sure yet which one it's going to be because it's black, you can't see much details. I'd love to do the Venetian mittens by Ksenia Naidyon. I'm sorry if I butchered your name just now. So they are lovely mitts, as you can see, with a lot of structure and pattern on them, and they seem to fit very tightly and nicely around the hand, which I love. I hate like loose floppy mitts around my wrist here. It's oh, I can't have that. They need to be smooth and fitted. So I love this, but I'm not sure if you can see anything of that nice pattern with this wool. So maybe I will take this wool for those mitts and this wool for just simple Vento del Nord, I think is the pattern called. Let me check quickly. Yes, I think I will just do some plain Vento del Nord mitts by Francesca Caricato. I hope I said that correctly, I'm sorry. So yeah, I think they are just plain ribbing, and I did one pair for my dad last year with a self-striping sock yarn I had left, so he has warm hands when he's in the stable. And I think I'm just, because of the black, I think it's best to just do a simple stripe pattern. I think it's stripe 2 by 1, or is it 2 by 2? I'm not sure right now. Let me see. I think it's 2 by 2 stripes. They will fit nicely. They will be soft, and I don't think you see much of pattern with this black fluffy yarn anyways. Then I have another lovely yarn, which unfortunately is very messed up. The ball of yarn is very messed up. It kind of fell off. So excuse me for the yarn mess. I already knit a cowl, a winter cowl in this yarn last year. I just took 2 balls of those yarn, estimated around 80 stitches, 3 by 1 rib, or was it 3 by 2? I'm not sure yet, I have to check. And I just knit the whole 2 balls of yarn in this cowl. It's the cowl from my winter coat I sewn last year. Well, I finished it last summer. And I have bought another 2 balls of this yarn, which was quite expensive. It's the long cashmere light. But if you touch this yarn, it's just, again, it's a cloud of heaven, yarny goodness of heaven on earth. So I need a hat of this yarn too. And I really want to have a matching hat for winter, which keeps me warm, and this yarn is very warm, the cashmere, full cashmere, and it's kind of a chained yarn. It's very specially spun, chained I don't know how to say that. It's very fluffy and warm and light, and it's just my dream yarn. If I could afford it, I would only knit in this, but it's way too expensive. It's 85 meters for 25 grams. It's 88% cashmere and 12% polyamide. So I want to do a hat, but because I want to use all of the yarn and not have like a tiny rest of it as a leftover, I want to do a top-down hat, which actually is not that easy to find. And I have 2 patterns I want to try. The first one is a free pattern. It's the Y.A.S, Yet Another Stockinette hat. So Y.A.S. I will put it here. Y.A.S hat by Jasmine Davis. And it's a top-down, very simple pattern. She doesn't describe much. She just describes kind of the beginning. And then you just knit until it's finished, and that's exactly what I want. So I will try this pattern, but she does it stockinette stitch, and I want to do it in a 3x1 or 3x2 rib pattern like the cowl. So I have the cowl to be able to kind of put on and see how tight is it. I know how many stitches I used for that, so I can kind of like, I take 5 stitches less or 6 stitches more or whatever. So I will do that, and I think it will be long enough so I can kind of fold it double. I'm very keen to have this hat, but it's really for winter, so it's not on the first place of my to-do list. If the Y.A.S hat is not working for some reason, or I don't like it, I found the Tailor's Rib Beanie by Ailbiona McLochlainn. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. So she has a top-down ribbed hat beanie, and it's a paid-for pattern, so I bought a lot of patterns lately, so I want to kind of, if I can find a free pattern that works for me, I don't see why I have to buy a pattern for like a hat. I really like that hat. I like the look of it. So yeah, I will see. If the other one doesn't work, I will buy the pattern and have a nice pattern to do. And yeah, looking forward to knit with this yarn. So the third last group of patterns is socks. And I bought the Minerva sock pattern by Sari Nordlund. And I'm waiting to cast this on. I already showed you the yarn in my last podcast. I will show it quickly again. It's the Frida Fuchs Remi Demi sock yarn with 75% superwash blue-faced Leicester, 25% nylon in a bright yellow, which doesn't really suit me as a garment or near my head, I think. So I want to have something yellow, but on my feet. I'm looking forward to start this pattern. I will start it very soon. As soon actually as my knitting needles arrive. I realized for this pattern I need a 2.75 DPN needle set, and I only have 3 and 2.5. I want to make 8 stitches less than she has in the pattern, but 8 stitches more than I usually do for my socks. Because it has cables on it, it might kind of cinch it in even more. Yeah, I'm looking forward to knitting that one. It's a toe-up pattern, which is great. My needles should arrive soon, so as soon as they are here, I will start the pattern. Please ignore my weird fringe today. It's hopeless. So let's go to the garment section. I already started knitting on my Tolsta tee, which will not be a tee, but a sweater actually. I want to make it with long sleeves. I started it, I showed it to you in my last podcast, so I will not go into depth with this one, because you will hear anyways of it. I'm already knitting it, I'm on it. It's the Tolsta tee pattern from Clow, who also has a knitting podcast channel here. She's a Crayobeia knitting podcast. And I also will take part in her scrappy yarn advent exchange of yarns she does. So I'm very curious, and I'm looking forward to do that. So more to this ones anyways in my next podcast episode, because it will still be a whip then. Then the pattern I'm looking forward to knit since last year, especially since the Swiss Yarn Festival, because I actually saw someone walking around in a real life jumper of this, and it's the Goldwing by Jennifer Steingass. It's, what can I say? This pattern is just marvelous. Look at the color work, neck, and also the detail on the sleeves and the end. It's just, it's gorgeous. I hope I can make it. The yarn I want to use is the Easy Care Merino Classic. I have these two colors. Actually, I'm quite color themed today with my backdrop. I didn't intend that. This one is color 265, and this one, the red one, is color 236. I have to make a swatch to see if those have enough tonal contrast. I am a bit afraid that this one is too dark and I need to go kind of lighter to have the big contrast. I will need to do a swatch and I will see then, and if I want to switch out this one to a lighter beige kind of thing, beige yellow, lighter yellow if possible, because I really love this kind of burgundy red. It kind of reminds me of autumn berries in forests. I just like it. It is not the softest yarn. I think Mayflower, I think I ordered it from Hobby, I think, or another online page. I'm not sure yet which one it was. So it's not the softest merino. Maybe it will change once I wash it. Of course, it's just as it arrived in the ball. It can have spinning oils in it, which I heard make them more scratchy than they actually are. So I will see that in the swatch. But this is not a jumper I want to wear like this t-shirt without anything underneath. So it's a winter jumper, so I will wear it with a sweatshirt underneath anyways. So not a problem. And it's not that scratchy actually. It's just not. I'm a bit, I touched this one before and then every other yarn is scratchy afterwards. So I think that's the problem here. So, and for the last project, which actually I'm not sure if I will start it in autumn or if it will be a New Year's kind of winter project. I showed you in my second podcast, yes, episode, I showed you this beautiful yarn which I bought in Nairn, in the Nairn shop. It's Bump Threads. Bump Threads. It's a mixture of merino, alpaca and silk, and it's heavily variegated and it's beautiful, and it has different thicknesses. So it has very loosely spun thick parts and it has tightly spun thinner parts. So I have about 600 something grams of this yarn. It's a bulky weight, which is a bit on the I don't think it will be enough for a jumper, but with this kind of yarn I really want a jumper. It's too warm and it wouldn't make sense for me to make it into a vest or something, because when I wear this kind of yarn I'm cold, so I want my arms to be covered. I was having a bit trouble finding a sweater I want to make. I love to try a drop shoulder sweater with a v-neck, because then I would not need that much yarn. I'm very sure I will try to find a black chunky yarn, bulky yarn to go with it, to kind of top it up and maybe do some stripes, or maybe the ribbings are then in black, solid black yarn. That is all a possibility I'm thinking about. And now I've found, actually, because of, who was it? Was it Venetian in the Woolly Worker? I think she, in her last podcast episode, well, not podcast, also the fall inspiration episode, she talked about this vest, which is the weekend slipover v-neck vest from Petite Knit. And it's a bulky yarn, it's a v-neck, it's a drop shoulder, so it has everything I want, except it's a vest, so I just need to knit the sleeves longer, basically. I don't think that's a problem, because it's top down, so I'll just go for it and have a try, and I will have to find some bulky black yarn first to go with this, to maybe add some striping, or, as I said, the ribbing also in the arms. So I will see how this one works out. Yeah, that is the last, I wouldn't say maybe late autumn project. Maybe this will also be pushed to the new year, very likely. So as you have seen, I have a lot of this kind of yellowy tones in my knitting, which is new for me because I never used to have accessories or clothes in yellow, because I was always the opinion that it doesn't suit me at all. Yeah, if this is something, I might discover a new color for me. I'm very looking forward to knitting all those projects, and I hope I could inspire you for some autumn fall knitting too. I didn't want to do kind of a list. I have tons of patterns in my Ravelry favorites list, which I want to knit, which I intend to knit, but I don't have the yarn for them. I don't have a set date I want to start them, so I just kind of pushed them back, and I didn't tell you all those patterns because maybe I don't knit them. So yeah, and there are so many fall autumn knitting inspiration videos coming. I think you will be, if you're a bit like me, you will be overwhelmed a bit by all the patterns. Sometimes I get overwhelmed because my favorites queue list on Ravelry gets longer faster than I can knit actually. So I want to go step by step, and it's a fair amount of projects I have here, but it's a lot of small ones, which I can easily knit in a week, like the hats and the mitts. I can do those on 2 or 3 evenings if I stay on them. It's a lot of small projects, which is de-stressing for me a bit. I always think that knitting is my hobby, and it should not be stress, it should be relaxation. So I need to see that it doesn't turn into stress, that it stays in the relaxation hobby corner of my life. And yeah, I hope this is an inspiration for you to do so too. I always go and do a clearing of my favorites list, so once in a while I go through and I just delete all the patterns I think doesn't speak to me that much as it did when I favorited it. Or I was looking different patterns for a special project and I decided for one and I didn't delete all the others I saved. So I go through them and say, okay, I did this project, I found my pattern, I don't need you anymore. So it doesn't keep growing and growing and growing, and that it stays kind of more or less in the same amount. It's growing, but at a slower rate. As always, please like and subscribe to this channel and like this video. If you want to find me, I'm knitting_Eillets on Instagram, or just Eillets on Ravelry. Yeah, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are your plans on knitting this fall autumn? Could I inspire you for 1 or 2 of my patterns? Maybe you want to try one of those. Do you already have the yarn for your knitting plans? Let me know. Yeah, the next regular podcast episode will be in around 2 weeks' time, a bit later maybe. We'll see how the time goes. Bye!